Hello, welcome to Getting Bookish. This is Shawna and I am Liz, and we love to come on and talk about all kinds of reading things. And I am particularly excited about this episode because we are going to be doing our 2019 year in review.
Oh, I can't believe it's been a year.
No.
Our last podcast of 2019.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And we're also going to be talking about what our goals are reading wise for 2020, which, happens tomorrow. So it's very exciting. So we're going to start by talking about our year in review on Goodreads. So if you use Goodreads, you can just go to the main page, and when you sign in, it's right there at the top, and you can click on it, and it gives you all of these statistics for the books that you've read this year. And I am kind of a nerd about statistics, so I very much like these kinds of things. And if you aren't a Goodreads user, it's a fun thing to see at the end of the year. Like, how many pages did I read this year? No one's going to go figure all that out. That would be terrible. But Goodreads does it all for you. And so it's just kind of a fun way to look back on the year and see what it was like. But we're also going to have a post on Facebook. So if you go in and you see your year in review, we would love for you to screenshot it and share it with us so we can see how many books everyone read, and we can see what your highest rated book was for the year and all kinds of fun things. So that will be a fun conversation for us to have over on our Facebook page. But Shawna, are you ready to share?
I'm ready.
Okay. So first question, how many books did you read this year?
Okay, so I know we're going to do this fast, but I just have to add something here. So on Goodreads, it says 72, and my goal was 100. But I didn't add in all the read alouds that I did with my kids, which are long chapter books. I know. So that's going to bleed into my 2020 goals, is to add those in there because I'm missing those. I believe with those that I left out, I would have hit my goal. On Goodreads, though, it says 72.
All right. So my number of books was 106.
Wow.
So I did hit my goal. I know. This
Yay.
is the first time in like 3 years that I've hit my goal. So how many pages did you read?
Okay, you're going to blow me out of the water with this one, but mine is 20,251.
That's awesome. My number of pages was 42,093 pages.
That's those long YA books.
So it is. So what was your average book length?
My average book length was 283 pages because I do have a couple picture books on there that I wanted to add, not
You're
to show that I have.
the curve.
Right, I am. And they're like, 30 pages, but I wanted to add them because I really dislike them and I wanted to share that with people.
I love it. My average book length was 400 pages. So
wow.
They were long books.
Yeah.
What was the longest book you read?
The longest book I read was 580 pages, and that was Pet Sematary by Stephen King.
Oh,
yeah.
Very nice. The longest book I read, and it was a beast, was Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. It's the last book in the series. 984 pages.
Oh my goodness. Why didn't she write 50 more to make it 1,000?
Right. I'm like, it's so close. Yeah, it was huge.
That's
and it took me
insane.
a while, but so much went on in that series. I wouldn't have wanted the last book to be any shorter. What was the most popular book? So most popular in this case means the book that's been reviewed by the most number of people on Goodreads.
Okay.
So what was your most popular?
The most popular book that I read was Night by Ellie Weisel by 1 million people.
Wow.
Yeah.
The most popular book I read was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which was read by almost 3 million people.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
I know. Crazy sauce. So what was your least popular?
My least popular was Life with My Idiot Family And that was read by 50 people.
For those of you that don't remember, Shawna talked about this one. It was an Audible original, correct?
I think it was. Yeah, it was. It was a story about abuse, and it was a very tragic story. I actually DNF'd it because it got so much into the law of everything. But yeah, 50 people.
Yeah. My least popular was the newest book, the newest Artful Parent book, which was actually a really great book. It's just not the kind of book people usually put on their Goodreads. And it was read by 23 people.
Okay.
But I read that as a preview book, and all of those reviews that I could scan through real quick, they also read it as a preview book. What was the first book you read in 2019?
The first book that I read for 2019 was Troublemaker by Remini, and actually I listened to it, and she reads the book, and it's her escape from the Church of Scientology, and it was fantastic.
Nice. The first book I read was The Governesses, which is creepy and cool, and I randomly picked it up at the bookstore, and it was super fun. I gave it 4 stars. What was the highest rated book that you read this year?
My highest rated book, which came in at 4.60, was, and I was just shocked, not that this isn't a good book, but out of all the ones that I've read, is Teaching from Rest, A Homeschooler's Guide to Unshakable Peace by Sarah Mackenzie. Which totally gets my vote, of course, as a homeschooling parent. But I was just like, whoa, that's the one out of all the 72 books that I read that had the highest rating. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Nice. My highest rating was A Court of Mist and Fury, which is also a Sarah J. Maas book, but from a different series. And I believe it was 4.6 stars.
Okay.
But I didn't write it down. Wait. All right. And last but not least, what was the average rating you gave for books?
So my average rating was 3.8. I feel like that's really high.
That's higher than mine, but not by very much. Mine was 3.7.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But, I mean, what's 3.7? Like a 77%?
That's
like
true.
If it was if a 3 is a C?
I think it's the DNFs that we give 1 stars to. It really brings down that rating.
Right. But even so, I'm like, a 3.5 star rating is probably how I would rate the year overall.
Yeah. That's true. What a cool way to think about that. Like,
yeah,
you're reading. We had some great ones and we had some really bad ones.
That's
fun. That was fun. I can't wait to do this next year.
Yeah. So that was our 2019 year in review. Mm-hmm. And those statistics came from Goodreads. They make it so easy if you keep track of your books that you're reading throughout the year. Mm-hmm. They give us all that info. So what is the next thing we're going to cover?
So the next thing that we are going to talk about, Liz and I have put a little list together of our top 5 books that we believe were the best books of the year and our bottom 5 books that were not the best books of the year. And I'll go first here with mine. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Am I going to cheat? No, I'm not going to cheat. I'm going to pick 5. I'm going to stick to 5. Okay. Beneath a Scarlet Sky.
Wait. Are you doing best or worst?
I'm doing best. Okay. Sorry. Best books. Yes. My top 5 best books. Beneath a Scarlet Sky. Absolutely fantastic. Number 2, I'm going to go with The Nightingale. I loved it. Number 3 is A Great Alone. Both of those by Kristen Hanna. Number 4, I'm going to go with Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. It made my top 5 list. And my 5th one, I'm going to give to Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. Those, I believe, are my top 5 books of 2019. Liz, what are yours?
All right. So my top 5, I decided to exclude any rereads because I felt like that would be unfair. Reasons. And then I would just choose the same books every year. I don't know. Okay. So number 1, and I ranked these So actually, I'm going to go in reverse order
Okay.
because I did rank them. So my number one is like the number one best one.
Oh.
All right. So number 5 is Sorcery of Thorns. Number 4 is The Gilded Wolves. Number 3 is The Ninth House. Number 2 is The Starless Sea. And the best book I read this year is Call Down the Hawk by Maggie
Oh,
Stiefvater.
I should have guessed that.
So now comes the harder list.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Or maybe it was the easier. What did you find? Was it harder or easier?
To me, well, it was easier because I had some to choose from, harder to narrow it down. So maybe it was harder. Let's see. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go with Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. You guys have heard me complain about this book like all year. Which I noticed that his other book won in the category on Goodreads.
Yeah,
the yellow cover
that
book.
One,
yeah,
but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, and it won in sci-fi. Okay, so Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, At the Wolves Table, Rosella Postorino. Ugh. Number 3, I'm gonna go with A Paris Affair by Tatiana D. Rosnay. 4 is gonna be The Beast's Heart. That was the Beauty and the Beast retell. Number 5, I'm going to go with Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. Those are the ones that I put at the very bottom. Liz, what are yours?
Okay, so again, I ranked them, so I'm going to go backwards because it feels more exciting to me.
Yeah, I need to do that. That's my goal.
Number 5 is To Best the Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, Hot Dog Girl. Number 3, Four Dead Queens. Number 2, Outlander. And number 1, Damsel, because it's the worst book ever. So sorry, Outlander fans, and nobody should read Damsel. 0 stars, do not recommend. So, and that was kind of a fun way to like review the year a little bit.
Yeah. That was really fun. It was actually a hard list to put together, and of course it gets harder the more books you read. If we had read 20 books, picking out 5 for both categories wouldn't have been as hard,
right.
But we have so many to choose from, but I think that was really fun.
I had a hard time. My top 5 picks came together pretty easily,
Mm-hmm.
especially the top 3. Like those were such obvious standouts.
Yeah.
For me, the skips, the ones that I do not recommend, those were hard other than Damsel. Because it was terrible. Okay, so now comes the little bit harder part,
mm-hmm.
because we're going to talk about how successful we were in our goals for 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just both review our goals real quick. So
Okay.
My goals at the beginning of the year were to read 100 books, were to do the Read Harder challenge, which there was like a little journal and everything to go along with that. And then I had like this more general goal, my theme, I guess, of the year was to read more diversely.
Mm-hmm.
So those were my goals that I started out with.
Mm-hmm.
So what were do you remember what your goals were?
Kind of. And if you guys are interested in knowing in depth of what our goals were, go back to, I believe it's either our first or second podcast.
Yeah.
Because I think our first one technically was an introduction. So it's either our first or second one.
Which might be real fun to watch after you've seen this one.
Yeah. Because we're all like, and then I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
and I'm going to
read a million books.
all the things, and I'm going to color my journal. So my goal was 100 books. My goal was also to understand Goodreads more. Mm-hmm. This is my first year actually logging stuff into Goodreads. So this is my first year, and so there's some things that I'll talk about later for my goals for 2020, but so I wanted to do that. I picked like 3 or 4 reading challenges from like everything I found because I was like, I'm gonna do all the reading challenges because it's gonna really help me read all the books. And it, well, we'll talk about what happened to that. And then I was gonna keep a journal of all the books that I read and kind of color them in and write the titles. And my other goal was that I really wanted to start a literary society. So those were my bookish goals. So Liz, with your goals, what did you accomplish? How did it go?
Well, so for my number of books read, this was the first year I've ever set my goal that high. Like 100 books, that's a lot of books to read in a year. My previous goals were like 70, and it's been several years since I even hit that as a goal. So I was super excited that this year I read over 100 books in the year. So that was super awesome. As for my challenge to do the Read Harder challenge, no. If I went back now, it's possible that I've read books that fall into those categories. But after like the fourth book, I was like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like this list telling me what kind of book I need to read next. Then it feels like homework. We've discussed this a lot. That for me, it just had this very negative connotation. So I filled in the first 4 books in the Read Harder challenge. And then I stopped looking at that journal. And I don't even know where it is now, honestly. And then for my general goal, just to read more diversely. So that wasn't just like to read books of a different, like cultural or ethnic background than I am. To read books that were just outside of my comfort zone. Like I fall very much into my genres that I like, and then I don't go out of that. And so it was to read diversely overall for the year. And I went through and I counted them up, and I read 26 books this year.
That's amazing.
That I would not have picked
up. It's like
up.
a quarter of your books.
Yeah. And I would not have picked those up if it wasn't for this, like me challenging myself to read more diversely. So I do feel that even though I gave up on the Read Harder challenge and I didn't keep track of my books in the cute little journal, I am happy with the goals that I did meet for the year. So, I mean, you've given us a little sneak peek as to how your challenges went, but how was your goal meeting for the year?
So I'm very happy with my first year using Goodreads. I think when I first started, I thought it was a lot harder than it was because it just felt like there was so much, and I didn't want to start something new and have to like learn something and do stuff. But it's actually really simple, and you can, if you're new to Goodreads, you can make it as simple as you want. You don't have to leave reviews. You can simply say, I'm reading this book and now I finished this book. And, just put a star rating, and that's it. And then at the end of the year, you get to have all these cool facts that we just showed you. And it's great. So I'm really excited that I learned Goodreads, basically. And if you're listening, please friend me. I want more friends on Goodreads.
Yeah. And that info is in the description on YouTube. And I think it's in our description in the podcast as well. But I'll definitely look.
Goodreads handles? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yay. And then as far as my challenges, so I don't have them listed because I forget, but it was like Anne Bogle's. It was like Reading Riot or something. And like I had said, I did all this because I was like, I want to pick and choose from all of these books. And I just, like Liz said, it started to feel like homework. And then I was like, I don't want to do any of it. And it's such a strong feeling when you feel like you have to do something. And you're like, no, this is my hobby. Like, out of all the areas in my life that I have to do things, this is not one that I want to be governed by anybody else. So I abandoned all of them because I was just so overwhelmed and upset. But I feel like the one that I wish I would have continued with was the, I don't remember what it's called, but it was the one, the Unread Shelf Project. That's the one that I wish I would have kept with, because those were really fun, and it's books that I have on my shelf. So it's not like a reading challenge where it's like, go read a book about an unpopular political opinion, that I'd have to go then find a book for. And
then suffer through, because we don't read books like that.
Right. Who wants to, no. And so that's going to be, for 2020. But I feel like I was just so overwhelmed by everything that I was like, I just want to read. And so I had my journal that I was writing my little things in, and I completely abandoned that. And it was so pretty and cute. But I have a new plan for that for 2020 that we'll talk about later. And then the other thing, was the Literary Society. So I'll just give a quick update on that. And we also have another podcast. If you go back towards the beginning, it's with our guest, Tiffany Patterson, and she talks about a literary society. So if you want more information on that, you can listen to that episode. So it's basically, I just wanted to start this literary society, and I did it. And I love it. I have made new friends, which I'm so excited about, to have new bookish friends. I've reconnected with friends from that I've known over a decade ago. And so that's been super exciting. So if you guys, if anybody listening is in the Ormond Beach area and you are looking for a, bookish group that gets together, send me a message. And I'll let you know the information on that, because we're always looking for people that want to chat books. But it's been one of the best things that I've done this year. And I'm still hoping, Liz, that you're going to create yours soon. But so that is kind of how my year went. I'm very pleased. I according to Goodreads, I didn't get to the 100, but I think I was probably there, or at least very close. But I'm just really excited, because for me to read, let's just say it was just the 72, with everything I have going on in, my own personal life, I think that that's a really good number, and I'm just really proud. And I love that it lists pages, because now I kind of want a page goal as well.
Right, right. Well, and I think that just knowing all the things that you do with the amount of people that are like, oh, I don't read, I have kids. Well, you can do both.
Yeah.
Look at Shawna. She's super mom. Well, I think that we both did really well toward our goals in 2019, and we both learned some things about ourselves. Mm-hmm. I learned that I don't enjoy challenges very much that are so far off of
very constricting.
Yeah. Like if it's a challenge that's like, hey, look at this challenge. It's all books that you do want to read, and you get to check them off all year long. I'm there for that. I love checking things off. But a challenge that's like, oh, look, let's try to read, go find a book that has a, orange cover.
Yeah.
And pretend that you like it.
Right. She's holding up Cursed, which she hated. Which
I may have said in the last podcast was not my favorite book. But yeah, I think that, and manually keeping track of books, I don't do well with that. No. But I do really enjoy putting them in Goodreads. Mm-hmm. Because I like that Goodreads keeps track of it for you, and it's very visually appealing. I don't have to feel like, oh, I started to write that in a blue pen, and now I only have a black pen, and I feel like it's not going to be pretty if I write it. I get so hung up in those details that the Goodreads app particularly is good for me. So
I do that even with I'll start half the page in cursive, and then I start writing in print, and I'm like, oh, I need to redo this whole page now. I mean, it can't be half in cursive.
Because it's bad. No one's going to see it.
Right.
So now.
2020. I can't believe tomorrow is going to be, we're going to be in the 20s. When I hear people talk about the 20s, I think about 1920.
Right.
We're going to be in 2020.
I feel like all of the fashion and home decor and style from the 20s should come back for these 20s.
Oh, that'd be so fun. Awesome?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe I'll read some 20s inspired books. That'd be
Right?
like
So
the
like,
flapper style and
yeah.
interesting,
That like F. Scott Fitzgerald.
which you don't like.
It exists.
I have The Great Gatsby on hold at the library, by the way. I
I love
thought
it.
of you
Well,
when I
I'm
got it.
excited for you to read The Great Gatsby and then to
Yeah.
tell me what you think of it.
Yeah, I think I read it in high
I have
school, but I didn't
opinions.
like anything that I read in high school. So I'm like,
Well,
I'll just give it a shot and see what happens.
it's
But
hard when
anyway,
things are like assigned. So, okay.
we digress.
Yes. What is your book goal for 2020?
Oh gosh. I knew we were going to talk about this, and I
Did you
really
set one? Well, you don't have to set
no,
one.
I did. I did. I just was a little bit more lenient than I was for 2019 because I
Good.
know how it went, right? So I'm going to keep the same goal of 100 books.
Hmm?
And because to me, I like challenges, but I've never been one that, like, if I don't meet my goal, I feel like a failure.
Right.
So that's just not my personality. I'm like, cool, whatever, you know? So I'm going to keep it at 100 because I feel like it just pushes me up there. And I think I'll put 100, but I also want to see if I can do just more than what I did this year. So even if I don't hit 100, if on my Goodreads it says 73 or 75, you know, then I'm like, well, I did more than what I did last year.
Yeah.
So, and then, so that's my number goal. As far as reading challenges, I'm not going to set a specific one, but I am going to revisit the Unread Shelf Project and see if they have a new one out for 2020. And I think that's the only, like, technical reading challenge I'm going to do. But as far as the types of books, I kind of want to read more, fairy tale retells.
Ooh, I like
Yeah,
that.
because even though I read a really bad one, The
There are
Beast's
some
Heart,
really great
there's
ones.
some good ones, and I love how people twist the stories a little bit because I also read and I can't remember the name of it, the one that was like the Little Mermaid retell, Songbird. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It almost
Oh,
made my
yeah.
top 5 list. And I loved it. It was such a sweet story. So I have a couple lined up that I already own. And so I want to read more of those. I'm still going to keep going with my World War II historical fiction because I love those. But again, I'm keeping everything very open because I really, really put myself in a box in 2019. And all it made me feel was like annoyed. And
Right.
so, so I'm just going to read like kind of what I feel like reading. And I do want to reread the Harry Potter series, which I'm really, really excited about that. And then I think that's about it for me. I'm not going to be journaling anything. I'm going to be a little bit more careful with my Goodreads and make sure that I won't put my picture books in there, but the chapter books that I read with the kids, I'll be putting those in. But yeah, I kind of feel like I have a little bit of a lenient year. But what about you?
Which is good.
What are your goals?
Well, so my book number goal, I'm going to keep it the same, but which is 100 books.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of hoping that I'm going to beat it by 20%. So in my
Wow.
mind, I would like to read 120 books.
10 books a month. You could do it.
But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If I don't take off June and July like I notoriously do,
Yeah.
then I could definitely do it.
Yeah.
Like I can't just take off 2 months from reading. So maybe that's my goal, to still read in June and July in 2020. And then my kind of theme for the year. So last year I challenged myself to read more diversely. This year I'm actually challenging myself to read more of what I like. So, and like to really kind of delve into fantasy and read some like more traditional, like adult fantasy books, and to explore more of that. And because I feel like there are books that people are like, oh, you like fantasy? Haven't you read this? And I'm like, okay, I know that like Brandon Sanderson has written like a million fantasy books. I've never read any of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so to read more of those titles. And then the challenge I'm doing for 2020, I'm actually really excited about because it's exactly what I want to read because I created it along with my friend Camille, who we had as a guest a couple months ago. So the challenge, you can find us on Instagram, and it's hashtag 2020 year of the reread. And so what we're doing is we have 46 books on our
Wow.
reread list. I know.
You've already put them together?
Oh yeah, they have dates and everything.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Again, I'm nerdy about things like this. So, but one of the things that we're going to be rereading is Harry Potter.
Yay.
Yes, like we have so many fun series on there. So we're rereading Throne of Glass. We are reading, oh, I feel like there are so many, and
Raven
now I
Boys.
can't think of any of them. Of course, we're rereading
Called on the
Raven
Hawk.
Boys.
The book about the horses. What is that one?
Yes. Oh, Scorpio Races.
Yeah.
Yeah, we read that every year. So Shawna knows because I've read a bunch of these books already this year. So it'll be super fun. And if people want to join us, they can join us for just a single book or a single series. But I'm hoping it is super fun. And I'm really excited because some of these series, like I say, they're my favorites, but I read them 10 years ago. Like maybe they're not my favorites anymore. I don't know.
That'll be interesting.
So it'll be kind of fun to revisit those. And so kind of my last reading goal is I'm actually hoping to start doing some YouTube book reviews
Oh, fun.
where it'll be like a whole episode just on a single book. Because I feel like I always have so much to say.
Yeah.
And we try so hard to keep those bookish briefs brief. And so I'm hoping to do that and just kind of play around with chatting
Will this be
more
with
about
spoilers?
books. With spoilers? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it'd be hard to dance around and not
Oh,
spoil
no, I
it.
want to talk about all of it.
Oh, fun. Oh, that'll
Because
be
I feel
so
like
fun.
sometimes you get to the end of the book and you're like, what was this? And so I want to talk about that part.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So those are kind of my goals
Oh, that's so
for
fun.
2020. And I feel like they're very manageable.
Very attainable.
The only one that's like, that could potentially be more challenging is the one with YouTube, but I'm not saying that like I'm going to do every single book I read or I'm going to make a video every week. It's much more freeform than that. So
if you feel like it.
yeah, when I feel like it, that'll happen.
I heard somebody was doing the Gilmore Girls challenge where you read all the books that they mention on Gilmore
Which
Girls.
Isn't it like 1,500 books?
It's some ridiculous amount of books.
Yeah, I would say, because I feel like every episode they mention several titles.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
And I know that there's specifically like a Rory Gilmore one.
Yeah, it's
that's
really
maybe
broken
shorter.
down.
Yeah.
There are some super fans
Like
out there
every
that
book
have
that like
those
you
things.
see her holding, you can read all of those. But they're typically books that I don't know, like they're classics.
Yes,
most of them are
literary classics. So I don't.
And
it's not something that would be enticing.
I'm not going for any difficult challenges. I am reading the books that I want to read in 2020.
Yeah.
2020 is going to be a selfish reading year for me, and I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't add this before, but I mentioned the Unread Shelf Project, but I'm really, really, really going to be focusing on reading the books that I have, because I think that that's so important to do, because you got the book for a reason and you may have forgotten what that reason is, but it's on your shelf and it should be read. So I'm going to be really focusing on my books, and I'm going to try. I know I have such a problem with buying books. I'm going to try really hard to not buy books. Now, saying that, I've already pre-ordered some books that are releasing in 2020. Come on, the whatchamacallit, the Mockingjay.
Oh yeah, there's a new Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. The new Hunger Games book is coming out I want to say May, I think it was. It was either March or May. I can't remember. So I pre-ordered that one. And then there's some other ones. Oh, and the other thing, and I keep leaving this out, like, and again, these are such loose goals because I just don't want to put myself in a box. But I do want to read, I want to be more aware of new books that are releasing, and maybe not necessarily buy them, but read them, or the ones that I think sound interesting, and read them so that we can talk about them. I like kind of being the first one to like know about a book, you know what I mean? Because usually I'm like, well, whatever, whatever is there. And, I feel like I was last to the boat on The Nightingale, and that would have been so cool to talk about in the beginning. So I just have very loose goals.
Yeah. Well, I am really excited for our 2020, and I am very proud of us in 2019. And something we didn't even talk about was we started a podcast in 2019.
We did. And we had no idea what we were doing.
No, but we have figured it out along the way. And thanks to all of our amazing, wonderful listeners and subscribers. And I feel like we've had a fun time creating a community of our listeners on Instagram and on Facebook. And so if you guys haven't checked us out over there, you are welcome to. We are Getting Bookish. It's just at Getting Bookish on both Facebook and Instagram. And you guys can hang out with us there. We ask questions. We post lots of fun, nerdy, bookish things. So I think it's super fun. So if you need some bookish besties.
Yeah, you know what we didn't really talk about, though, is goals for our podcast.
Ooh.
We didn't really I put you on the spot here. But, and again, I don't want to put so many labels on things because we'll just be like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. But I think something that you and I both agree on is that we love having guests.
We love having guests.
It has been so fun.
I mean, I want to put it out there for our listeners, even if you haven't met us before. It doesn't matter if you know us, but if you love books,
that's the only prerequisite.
You just have to be a reader. That's it.
Yeah. So
come hang out with us. Like, send us a message if you're like, oh my goodness, I would love to be on a podcast, or I just want to like chat with them because it would be so much fun. Please come chat with us.
You can message us on Facebook or email us at gettingbookishinfo@gmail.com. Yes. And just tell us a little bit about you and the books that you like, the books that you don't like. And we would love to set you up with a date for 2020 because those have been some of the most fun episodes because it just brings a different personality in. And we've had so many laughs with our guests.
Yes. A Bookish Brief might be my favorite, but guests are very close second.
Yeah. And speaking of guests, I do want to say our next podcast, so our first podcast of 2020 is going to be a very special guest, and that's going to be Marcus Buckley, who is actually the pastor of my church, and I've actually known him since I was 12.
Wow.
So yeah. So I'm really excited. He is the author of All Have Sinned, which is his first novel that he's written. And I talked about it on our podcast last week. So if you like that kind of FBI investigative, terrorism type, fast, action type book, you can do a pre-order now for Kindle or for the hardback copy on Amazon. And I believe it releases January 11th, but he will be our guest for next week's podcast. And I am so excited. And I think you guys are going to love listening to his story.
I'm super excited for that. So thank you so much for being here with us, whether this was the first podcast you listened to or if you've been hanging out with us all year long. We appreciate you guys so, so much. So if you haven't subscribed, please do that. Leave us a comment or a like or a review because we love hearing from you. And I am really interested in hearing about everyone's 2020 goals, along with seeing their 2019 Goodreads year in review, if you have that. So definitely come over and hang out with us on Facebook, and you can share those with us because I am so excited to see what you guys did this year and what you're planning to do next year. Hopefully you take us along for the ride on your bookish journey. We will see you guys in 2020. Happy New Year.
2020. Happy New Year. Stay safe. Bye. See you next time.